So, welcome back to C Daily Buzz. Last time we explained how Bitcoin and blockchain actually work. Today we go deeper, because the most fascinating part of the entire Bitcoin story is not the technology, it is the person who built it. A stranger named Satoshi Nakamoto created a system worth over $1 trillion, sent one final message in late 2010, and then vanished. 15 years later, nobody knows who he is. A 9-page PDF from a name nobody had heard before. A wallet holding 1.1 million Bitcoin that has not moved in 15 years. A Newsweek cover story that destroyed an innocent man's life. A court ruling in London that called another man a liar. And a Bitcoin neighbor who lived 2 streets away. Let us get into it. We have to start at the end, because Satoshi Nakamoto's most famous act was not creating Bitcoin, it was leaving. For 2 years after the white paper, Satoshi was everywhere. He posted on the Bitcoin Talk forum, he answered email, he coded, he worked alongside developers like Hal Finney and Gavin Andresen, building the project from nothing. Then, in April 2010, something shifted. Satoshi quietly handed over the project keys to Gavin Andresen, a programmer in Massachusetts. He started talking less, posting less, replying less. On December 12, 2010, he sent his final public message. It was a short technical post on the Bitcoin Talk forum about software updates. No goodbye, no celebration, no name reveal, just a regular post like any other day. He never spoke publicly again. A few months later, in an email to Mike Hearn, a developer, he wrote a single line, "I have moved on to other things." And then, he was gone. Now, here is where it gets strange. Satoshi mined Bitcoin himself in the early days. He mined a lot of it. Based on blockchain analysis, his personal wallet holds an estimated 1.1 million Bitcoin. At today's prices, that is roughly $130 billion. He has never spent a single coin, not one transaction, not one transfer, for 15 years. Think about that. He is sitting on $130 billion, and he has not touched it. The world's largest anonymous fortune, completely frozen. Why? 3 possibilities. He is dead, he lost the keys, or he is choosing not to spend it because the moment those coins move, the entire crypto market would explode in panic. For our viewers in Southeast Asia, if Satoshi were Asian, there would be evidence. The writing style, the working hours, the email timestamps, they all point to someone in the United States or the United Kingdom. The Japanese name was almost certainly a mask. In March 2014, the world thought it had found him. Newsweek magazine had been struggling. They wanted a big story to bring the brand back. A reporter named Leah McGrath Goodman spent 2 months hunting for Satoshi Nakamoto, and she found a man named Dorian Prentice. Satoshi Nakamoto, 64 years old, Japanese-American, lived in a quiet suburb called Temple City just east of Los Angeles. A former engineer who had worked on classified military projects for companies like the United States Air Force. His birth name actually did contain the word Satoshi. Newsweek ran the story on their March 6, 2014 cover. The headline, "The Face Behind Bitcoin." The article claimed Dorian was the inventor of Bitcoin. They published his photo. They published the front of his house. They listed his street name. Within hours, his home was surrounded by reporters from every major news outlet on Earth. Here is what actually happened that day. When the Newsweek reporter approached Dorian outside his house and asked him about Bitcoin, he said one sentence, "I am no longer involved in that." He would not answer any further questions. Newsweek interpreted that as a confession. But here is what Dorian actually meant. He was talking about his engineering career. He was no longer working as an engineer. He was retired. He had never heard of Bitcoin in his life until that morning. The next day, after spending hours hiding from reporters in his car, Dorian gave a single interview to the Associated Press. His statement was clear. "I am not Satoshi Nakamoto. I have nothing to do with Bitcoin. I had no idea what it was when those reporters showed up." The damage was done. His face was on every news site in the world. His private address was public. His elderly mother in his house was in tears. The crypto community did something beautiful in response. Strangers from around the world started donating Bitcoin to Dorian as an apology. By the end of 2014, he had received roughly 102 Bitcoin in donations. Today, that is worth around $10 million. Dorian, a man who had nothing to do with crypto, accidentally became a Bitcoin millionaire because the entire community felt guilty for ruining his life. And the real Satoshi? Still silent, still hidden. Newsweek had got it wrong. So if it was not Dorian, then who? Over 15 years, 3 names have stayed at the top of the list. Suspect number 1, Hal Finney. We mentioned him in a previous episode. Hal Finney was a computer scientist living in California. He was the first person Satoshi ever sent Bitcoin to. He was one of the only people on the original mailing list who took the white paper seriously. He had been writing about digital cash for over a decade. He understood cryptography at a level only a handful of people on Earth did. Here is the part that stops everyone cold. Hal Finney lived in Temple City, California, the exact same town as Dorian Nakamoto, 2 streets away, just a few blocks between their houses. Some researchers believe Hal saw Dorian Nakamoto's name in a local directory, liked the sound of it, and used it as a cover. A real Japanese-American name to throw investigators off the trail. It is one of the strangest coincidences in the entire mystery. A linguistic study from Aston University in England analyzed Satoshi's writing style against 12 suspected authors. Hal Finney came out as one of the closest matches. The way he structured sentences, the vocabulary, the British spellings. Hal denied it until the day he died. He told reporters, "No, I am not Satoshi." He was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, the same disease as Stephen Hawking, in 2009. He passed away on August 28, 2014. His body was cryogenically frozen by the Alcor Foundation in Arizona. If he was Satoshi, he took the secret with him. Suspect number 2, Nick Szabo. This one is harder to dismiss. Nick Szabo is an American computer scientist of Hungarian descent. He has degrees in computer science and law, and in 1998, 10 years before Bitcoin, he proposed a system called BitGold. It is almost identical to Bitcoin in its core idea. Decentralized digital money secured by cryptographic puzzles with a fixed supply. In 2005, Szabo also invented the concept of smart contracts, which is the technology behind almost everything in crypto today, including the entire Ethereum ecosystem. The Aston University Linguistic Analysis ranked Nick Szabo as the single closest writing match to Satoshi, closer than anyone else they tested. The phrasing, the technical vocabulary, the obsession with the Byzantine generals problem, they all line up. Szabo has denied it publicly multiple times. He says he is not Satoshi. The crypto community is roughly split. Half believe him, half think he is the most obvious answer. Suspect number 3, Craig Wright. This one is the most controversial. Craig Wright is an Australian computer scientist who in 2016 publicly claimed he was Satoshi Nakamoto. He produced documents. He gave demonstrations. He sued people who said he was lying. For 8 years, the crypto world was divided. Then in March 2024, the United Kingdom High Court delivered a ruling that ended the debate. Quote, "Dr. Wright is not the person who adopted or operated under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto." The court found that he had presented forged documents and lied repeatedly under oath. The judge was blunt. Craig Wright is not Satoshi. He never was. The case is closed. So out of 3 serious suspects, 2 have credible cases and have denied it, and 1 was officially ruled out by a court of law. The mystery continues. For Southeast Asia, none of the real suspects are Asian, not one. Despite the Japanese name, the real Satoshi was almost certainly someone working in the Western cypherpunk community. The name was a disguise. Now we get to the strangest part of the entire mystery. In 2013, an Argentine security researcher named Sergio Demian Lerner published a paper that quietly changed everything. He analyzed every single Bitcoin block from the first year of the network, and he noticed a pattern. One specific miner was responsible for an enormous percentage of the early blocks. Lerner called this miner Patoshi. Patoshi is almost certainly Satoshi himself, mining from his own computers in the early days when there was basically no competition. The numbers are staggering. The Patoshi pattern shows that this single miner produced roughly 22,000 blocks, which translates to approximately 1.1 million Bitcoin. The largest single fortune ever created, sitting in dormant wallets untouched. But here is what makes it even stranger. The pattern shows that Patoshi deliberately slowed down his mining whenever other miners showed up. He was not trying to maximize profit. He was protecting the network, making sure his own computers did not dominate too much. That is the behavior of a person who actually cared about Bitcoin succeeding, not someone trying to get rich. The timestamps tell another story. Patoshi mined on Eastern Standard Time, which is the United States East Coast. That is 12 hours away from Japan. The name was definitely a disguise. Then in January 2010, Patoshi suddenly stopped mining. The pattern just ends. 11 months later, the public Satoshi disappeared too. For our viewers in Southeast Asia, here is the part that should make you sit up. We covered a different story in a previous episode about ancient Bitcoin wallets suddenly waking up after years of silence. Those wallets held a few hundred million each. The Satoshi wallet holds 130 billion. If it ever moves, the entire crypto market will not just shake, it will explode. That is the Satoshi mystery. 15 years of investigations. Newsweek got it wrong. Hal Finney denied it, Nick Szabo denied it, Craig Wright lied about it in court, and $130 billion sits frozen in a wallet that nobody can open. The real Satoshi is probably still alive, probably still watching, probably reading this video right now somewhere in the world. But while Bitcoin's creator disappeared, someone else stepped into the spotlight. A 19-year-old kid who built something even bigger than Bitcoin. That is the next episode, and you do not want to miss it. Drop a like, hit subscribe. Multiple subtitle languages are on for our friends across Asia, and we will see you in the next one.